What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Full Blast. I am your host, Raja Burrows. And this is episode 150, which in some ways I thought I'd get here faster, but then I took time off and then, stuff with the community. My hair's doing all sorts of things. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do number 150. And for number 150, I wanted to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the subject of blasting. I want to talk about blasting. Um, so my background is pretty eclectic. I'd like to think. In addition to the artsy sort of stuff that I did and do, um, I also have been fairly involved with competitive gaming and specifically game design and UX UI design, not so much as a designer, but as somebody who has like tested products and websites and helped design games and figured out things, which again very much plays into my blasty nature. And I've sort of just been thinking in general about blasting and sort of what makes I guess what makes good blasting good, um, but also in a way that is genuinely universal and that isn't like, well, this is applicable to NT blast, but for SF blast, you're fucked, right? And I started to think about like what the core elements of blasting are, and the more that I sort of drilled down and really thought about it, the more it became clear to me that blasting is not exclusively telling people what to do. That is absolutely a manifestation of blast. 100%. 100%. Saying if you're the boss, if you are the leader of a group, right? I'm going to use like you are a middle manager kind of boss person, right? So you're like a team lead and you have like maybe 4 or 5 direct reports, each of whom have 4 or 5 direct reports. But there are people above you in the corporate structure and whatever, you're doing the thing, right? And so your job, whatever field it may be in, um, really comes down to this. And it comes down to, how do you want people to behave? Because that's really all that blasting is. Like the more that I thought about it, that's all that teachers do. That's all parents do, right? Like if it's a parent trying to raise a child, raise a cat, raise a whatever, if you're trying to build a community, whatever you're trying to do, organize OI for the tribe DE. At its essence, it all comes down to the simple question of, how do you want other people to behave? Now, that is distinct from play, which doesn't really have those sorts of parameters, right? It wants to engage with the tribe, but it is much more flexible uh, when it comes to how the tribe behaves. In fact, play wants unpredictability. It wants a little bit of chaos, if you want to shorthand it like that, because it's unexpected. It's, oh, I don't want to tell somebody what to do, to let them do what they're going to do, and then I do what I'm going to do, right? And it's one of the reasons we have Savior Consume, Demon Blast, whatever, blast low. They can run into trouble when they are in leadership positions, because oftentimes if they speak and act from a place of consume, it often comes with this feeling of, I don't like being told what to do, so therefore I am not going to impose any will or parameters or guidelines or boundaries on the people who report to me, on the people who work for me effectively, right? Well, that is in and of itself sending a really clear signal. I've talked about this a lot. When I was in New York, the last job that I had was run, like my boss, who was the head of the company, was a lead consume person. Hardcore lead consume and hardcore blast last. Like this individual was not very balanced with their daemon functions. And what ended up happening was she was like, I want people to feel like they can come and go as they please. I want to give them a lot of freedom. I want to give them the ability to do the work that they need to do, however they feel they need to do it, and just get the work done, and it's all gonna sort of be a thing. Okay, well, if you don't create structure, structure will happen whether you like it or not. It just will. Humans will organize themselves. They'll organize themselves with other people, or they'll develop their own system. And if you don't impose that will, you run the risk of having other people develop a system that you don't like or want. Because like we're not just going to swim in chaos. Nobody is, consciously or unconsciously. There has to be some sort of backstop, some sort of, okay, I start work at this time, I end work at this time, or I don't check my phone during lunch, or whatever it may be, right? And one of the things that my boss did not realize is that all of these systems were developing without her knowledge. She was like, oh, wait, that's what's been happening? Yes, because in the absence of guidance, people gonna figure it out themselves. And maybe they're good at it, right? She got lucky with me for a while, and I happen to be good at blasting. I happen to be good at the OI, so it was like kind of lucky, but that's not the case for everybody. And, again, listen, there's an entire separate video for blasters about how to consume better and how to be more comfortable with chaos. And the same principle applies. If you do not seek out the chaos will seek out you. So be willing to add a little chaos into your plan. Be proactive about it, because it'll minimize the chances of you getting completely rectified. I'm going to close my window for a second. A little too much light. So it happens when you do videos at 5 p.m. in the summer, the western-facing window. So how do you blast better? Well, again, it comes back down to what behavior do you want to encourage? How do you want people to behave? So that's the first question. If you don't know how you want people to behave, how you want people to engage with whatever it is that you're doing, you got to start there. You have to start there. And again, it's not just start with the OI or start with the DE. It's a mix, right? That is blasting. But let's say, so here's a really concrete example of incentivizing a behavior. So let's say you have you've just taken over this company. It's a small business, and you just took over it, and you're the branch director, and you see that there's a shitty coffee pot in the little break room area. Shitty coffee pot. Okay, and let's say you replace it with a Keurig, a really nice, fancy Keurig. Okay, you are encouraging people to not bring their own coffee. By buying the fancy Keurig, you are sending the signal, you are communicating to the tribe, hey, if you come to work here, your coffee needs will be taken care of. So therefore, you as the boss don't get to be mad if you see at the end of the quarter, man, we're buying a lot of Keurig pods. Yeah, because you have created an incentive for people to not bring their own coffee. You did that. By buying the Keurig, you're sending the signal, hey, feel, this, don't worry about your coffee. We got you covered. Right? That's a very silly example, but I think it's concrete enough that it illustrates the point. How about a little more abstractly? How about um, if you don't say anything, right? So let's say the standard workday is 9:30 to 5:30, right? And let's say there's an employee who leaves at, I don't know, 4:45 every day. Some days they stay till 5. Some days they stay till 4:30. They always get their work done, right? They're not delinquent. No clients fall through the cracks. Everything happens as it should. And sometimes they come in early to finish up the work from the previous day that they didn't get to, right? And again, I had, this is a true story. I had a coworker. Our work day was 9:30 to 5:30. She would come in between 7:15 and 7:30 and then leave at 3:30. She got all of her work done, crushed it in the numbers in a lot of ways. It's a little more complicated than that, but broadly speaking, she did great with her numbers. She got all of her work done. Okay, and nobody said anything, right? Cool. By not saying something there, you send the signal to the other tribe members that, hey, this behavior is appropriate. This behavior is something that I want to implicitly encourage and not do anything about. So if people see that this one person gets to show up at 7:30 and leave at 3:30, and then somebody else starts showing up early and leaving at, let's say they show up at 8 and start leaving at 4, well, you can't really be mad about that. Why? Because you have communicated to the tribe, you have blasted to the tribe that the 9:30 to 5:30 workday doesn't really count. On the flip side, this is another job that I worked. I would stay again, there are a lot of things dumb about this job, but I'd get there at 8:30 and they say, it was a fully digital job. There was no reason for this to even be an in-office job. Like, this is a work from home job, period. And I remember this was in like early in the second week, the week that I quit, but it was early in the second week, and I would like get my work done, and I'd start to crash around 5:15. I'd stick it out till 5:15 or so, and I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm good. I did what I consider to be a good amount of work for the day, and I'm gonna go home now. And I got pulled aside, and he was like, hey man, we don't really leave before 5:30 here. Like, it's just not it's not a thing that we do. We really like people to stay until 5:30. And in fact, we really like it if you put in some overtime, if you stay late. We really want you to stay late. But we don't come in early. Like, we don't want you to come in early and do work. We want you to come here at 8:30 and then stay late until, at least 5:30, ideally 6 or 6:30. I was like, what the fuck? But that was a very clear blast moment, not because he was telling me what to do, but he was saying, if you want tribe validation, if you want the validation from me, your superior, if you want to build camaraderie with your fellow workers, this is the behavior that will be rewarded, or the behavior that will be punished, one way or the other. And I think that's a really useful lens through which to look at blasting. Because so often we think of it as like, these are the rules, this is what you were going to do. You must do this. You must show up at 9. You cannot leave until 5. You will take a lunch break from 12:30 to 1:30, whatever, right? That's bad blasting. Like, I don't think it's a very effective way to blast. But it's that is certainly a version of blasting. But there's this other version of blasting that's like, okay, how can I create a set of rules, a set of parameters, whether they are NI, energetic, abstract, conceptual parameters, or if they are literal, sensory, show up at this time, you must always sit at this desk, you must do like very concrete SI things to do and procedures to execute, whatever it is, that's encouraging a certain kind of behavior. If you let one of your employees work from home, well, then the other employees are going to be like, well, shit, can I work from home? Because clearly that is acceptable. And also, to go back to this incentives idea, if your work is primarily digital. So I'm going to go back to my recruiting job for a second, right? So this was in like a corporate, cubicle farm kind of office, right? And we all, especially the guys, like we had to wear suits every day. It was done. There was no fucking reason that we needed to wear suits every day. Now, I thought that we needed to wear suits. When I first started the job, I was like, oh, okay, well, if we have to wear suits, then obviously it must be because we have so many clients coming in and out that we need to look sharp all the time. We're going to be talking to people. We're going to be having in-person interviews. Like, we're going to be hustling. And I'm like, all right, that's dope. Cool. But nobody ever showed up because nobody wanted to do an in-person interview with a recruiting company. They're like, I'll do a phone interview with you, but I'm not gonna come down to your office to meet you in person so that you can send me to another office to do the actual interview with the company. That's bananas. There's no universe in which that makes any sense. And I quickly figured that out, and I was like, wait a minute. Then what are we doing? The incentives don't line up because the work incentivizes people to stay at home. And in fact, in the other office, it was in Jersey instead of New York City. They wore like sweatshirts and they goofed around all the time, and it was just like a clubhouse all day, and it was fucking cool. And also they destroyed us when it came to the numbers. Destroyed us consistently. Because in that office, the incentives lined up with the behavior. It's like, hey, we want a certain kind of attitude, so we're going to create rules that encourage people to behave in that way. There is an alignment there. Fantastic, right? So taking it away from the workplace for a second, let's talk about parenting, right? And this is something that Shan herself has talked about struggling with, setting boundaries and feeling like, oh no, I'm running after Cody and it's just pure chaos 24/7. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, yes, of course there is something you can do about it, but there are a couple of ways that you can do something about it. For instance, if you say, no TV until you pick up your toys, and I'm not going to help you. Okay, there's actually a lot going on in that little brief, directive. No TV until. Okay, so now you're creating an incentive structure, right? If you want the TV, this is what you have to do to earn the TV time. Okay, no TV until you do some task. Okay, So now you're like, okay, this is right. Do your chores, get a reward. Great, you're using television as the reward. Fantastic. No TV until you pick up your toys. Okay, so now we're incentivizing TV and teaching the lesson of, if I want more TV time, then I should just put my toys away as I use them, because then I have less to pick up. Or maybe I should just play with one or two toys so that when it comes TV time, I don't have to spend as long putting all my toys away. Now, the kid is not going to consciously recognize this, but that's the incentive structure you are creating. And again, you have to be consistent with this over the days and weeks and months and year, right? And just make that like a thing of like, no, we talked about this. No TV until you put away all your toys, right? Excuse me, carrot. Eventually, they will understand what is being asked of them, and you will end up getting the behavior that you want, which is a clean living room. And then this last part is also there's a lot of information packed in there, right? And I'm not going to help you. Okay, now we're incentivizing another behavior, which is being self-reliant, being self-sustaining, learning how to not have to count on other people to clean up your messes, quite literally. And you're reinforcing, you're remyelinating these, the neural wiring of, these are the consequences for these actions, positive and negative, right? All of that stuff is encouraging a certain behavior. How about this old chestnut? This was floating around Tumblr for a while, so I'm cribbing it from them. But it's such a useful. It is so useful to me. Curfew. So I never had a traditional curfew. I never had a curfew. What I did have was a cell phone. Once I started driving, once I turned 17, and was sort of like, bopping around, out and about, gallivanting with my friends, right? The rule was I had to tell my parents what I planned to do. Hey, Mom, I'm going to school, and then after school, my friends and I, we're going to go to Fuddruckers, and then after Fuddruckers, we're going to go back to school, because you have a 5:30 call for a 7 o'clock curtain for our school play. And then I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe we're going to go to IHOP. If whatever, I'll let you know. Okay. Well, that meant that I had to know what I was going to do. So she was encouraging the behavior of, again, whether she meant to or not, she was encouraging the behavior of, I gotta be on top of my shit. I have to tell her what I'm going to do. And if I deviated from that, again, I was a pretty good kid. I wasn't going out drinking and doing drugs and all the shit you're not supposed to do as you're a teenager, especially if you're driving, right? If that plan changed, I had to tell her, right? I couldn't just decide to go to IHOP. I had to say, either I think back then we just called. I don't think texting was really a thing. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to even remember what phone she had. It was obvious. It would have been T9 texting no matter what, because that's how old I am. But I'm pretty sure that I think it was just calling, right? So I had to call her, and I had to get a hold of her, whether it's on her cell phone or home. I had to call her and say, hey, Mom, we're going to IHOP. And then she would say, fantastic. Call me when you're done. Call me when you're on your way home or if you're on your way to something else. And then one night I was like, hey, Mom, we're all going to go over to Stephanie's house and hang out. I'll probably be pretty late, so I'll let you know when I get home. Stephanie, we're chill. We're not doing anything. It's fine. We're just hanging out and playing pool and eating junk food. She's like, great. Have a terrific time. Let me know when you're on your way home. Right? So that was setting up a very clear incentive structure. Right? Did she want me calling her all the time? I have no idea. But based on the rules that she set forth, that required me to call her a lot because I'm a pretty social guy. I like booping and bopping around. So if that's what if she wants to know that, then she's going to get a lot of calls from me. If she didn't want me calling her so much, then she should have set up a different incentive structure, a more traditional curfew, right? On the other end of the spectrum, there's the curfew mode. Now, to be clear, I think both are effective. I don't think one is better than the other. I think that they are both completely reasonable. It depends entirely on what's easiest for the parent and the kid to co-collaborate together, right? If the parent says, now this is the part that was floating around Tumblr, right? So the parent says, all right, so you have an 11 o'clock curfew because you have the show that you're in, and as you know, it's wherever you go. The show is 2 hours long plus 15-minute intermission plus to hang out with the people afterward, whatever. And then of course you can go to a cafe, do whatever, but you have to be home by 11 o'clock. So if you decide to go to a cafe that's 40 minutes away from home, then know that that's going to cut into your time. That you got to leave at 10:15 so that you're home by 11. Right? That's creating a different set of incentives. Those incentives are, be responsible with your time in the moment. Watch the clock. Don't lose track of time. That's a perfectly reasonable value to want to instill, right? But if the kid shows up routinely at 10:55 and you give them shit for it, well, then it's like, wait a minute, hang on a second. I feel, if I'm the kid, I'm like, wait. I made it home by 11. The rule is be home by 11. Do you want me home sooner than that? Because if you want me home sooner than that, just make the curfew 10:30. I can be mad about it or not. But whatever. I'm 16. I don't have a lot of say in the matter yet. But I don't know what you actually want me to do, because the incentives that you have set up incentivize me to come home between 10:55 and 10:59. If you want me to behave differently, give me different incentives. If you want me home at 10:30, make curfew 10:30. If you want me home at 11, don't give me shit when I show up at 10:55. And I bring that up because that's the kind of thing that doesn't feel like blasting, but is actually more blasty than just telling people what to do. Because the blast has two parts. It has, right? It's not just tribe interaction. Blast has to do with organizing for tribe validation, right? Bringing it all around. It's the validation part. That's the reward. That's the dopamine hit. That's the cookie. That's the, hey, you did what I wanted you to do, so now I'm going to give you praise. I'm going to let you watch TV. I'm going to give you freedom. Right? So The freedom that somebody who has a curfew has is that they don't have to tell their parents where they're going. Again, within reason, whatever. Ideally, in Magical Christmas Land, it's your curfew's at 11. I trust you to make responsible enough decisions that will ensure that you get home by 11, but you do not need to tell me. You don't need to talk to me. You can do whatever you want. I'm trying to teach you some responsibility. Cool, right? The freedom comes in the choices, but the boundary is, is temporal. I had it flipped. I had very little freedom to just do things spur of the moment without telling people, right? I had to tell my parents where I was. And the joke is like, boy, you have a tracking collar on you. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I have so much fucking freedom on the back end because I have the structure on the front end, right? That's all. It's just a matter of where the freedom and the structure is, right? I had to be very clear. It's like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Great. If something changes, let me know. Tons of freedom on the back end. Or do whatever you want as long as you are home by 11. Either one works, but recognize that each one of those is incentivizing different behavior. So all of this is to say, it's really important as a blaster, or as somebody if you are in a position to blast, right? You have to know how you want other people to act. And then you have to create rules that encourage the behavior that you want. To bring it back to the Keurig example, if you want people to bring their own coffee, don't put a fucking Keurig machine in the break room. That's totally dissonant, because people will do, whether it's people at scale or a small group of people over a long enough period of time, people will do whatever they feel incentivized to do, regardless of what the rule actually is, and regardless of what you say that you want. If you say you want people to bring their own coffee, that, again, this is a deliberately dumb example, just play along. If you say that you want people to bring your own coffee, but bought a Keurig machine, people are going to go, I'm just going to not bring my own coffee because there's a free coffee Keurig machine here. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. And then you, the blaster, are like, boy, I just really don't like people bringing coffee. Oh, maybe that's why, right? So it's really important to know how you want the people around you to behave. And as you start to get better at your blasting, being really just honestly, even just the awareness of, the boundaries and rules and limits that I set will inform people's behavior, whatever that is, right? And again, I am firmly of the belief that if people are behaving in a way that you don't want them to behave, the first step is to go, how am I enabling this behavior? I'm going to wrap it up in 1 second. But so now to take it fully away from any sort of power dynamic, let's say it's, someone you're dating, somebody, a colleague, a coworker, somebody with whom you are a peer, and who doesn't really have to listen to you for any sort of like authority reasons, right? If you don't want your coworkers emailing you at 8 o'clock at night, don't respond to emails until the next morning. They will fucking figure it out, right? Or they will go to their boss, and then it becomes a whole different thing, right? But now, okay, how about this? Let's say you're dating somebody, and you don't like you don't like it when they text you and then I don't know. Let's say again, dumb example. Please do not. This is not applicable to my current girlfriend situation. This is an example, purely hypothetical. So let's say you're like, I don't like it when my girlfriend texts me after 7 p.m. Because after 7 p.m., that's my time, and I like to do my thing, and I want to shut out the outside world. Okay, well, have you actually said that? Have you communicated that that's a boundary that you would like respected? That's step one. Do they know this boundary exists? And then step two, have you made it so that your boundary is reasonable, right? Are you communicative throughout the day? Are you good about saying, hey, oh, by the way, like, let me know what you want for, like, let's say you're cooking, right? You're cooking dinner in for date night and you're trying to figure out what to eat and you want to know what they want. Okay, well, don't ask them that at 4:55 p.m. and hope that, they get it and think about it and respond, right? Because you are now encouraging them to disrespect your boundary. Ask them at 9 in the morning. Give them the whole day to think about it. Give them the whole day to get back to you and have a little back and forth about it, right? And then if you have set the clear boundary, blasted the clear boundary, again, whether it's to a partner, to a coworker, to a direct report, to a child, whatever, if you have communicated the boundary and then you behaved in such a way that makes the boundary easy to respect, because that's the big key. If you make a rule but then make that rule hard to follow, that's on you. You as the rule setter, if you set a rule that's hard to follow, people are just going to keep breaking the rules, and you're going to be like, why do people keep breaking the rules? Because you made the rule too hard to follow. But let's say you have set a clear boundary and made that boundary easy to respect. Now you can have the conversation of like, hey, I really don't appreciate you disrespecting my boundary. And now you will have come into the conversation with so much more of a loaded position, because you have not only communicated your boundary clearly, you have made that boundary as easy to respect as you can. And then if at that point they're not respecting it, okay, well then it's a different conversation. Maybe then it's not a reasonable boundary, right? If you say, I don't like it when my kid eats ice cream, I don't like that my kid eats so much ice cream. Serve the kid less ice cream. I've literally seen this in parenting books, where it's like man, my kid is like kind of gaining weight, and I don't really like what my kid is eating. Motherfucker, the kid is not going to the grocery store. You are going to the grocery store. If they see you eating a whole pint of ice cream 3 times a week, but you're like, oh no, you only get one little spoonful. That's a very hard boundary to like wrap your head around. Because like, but no, I thought we eat a lot of ice cream. So all this is to say, if you want to get better at blasting, you got to know what you want. You got to know how you want other people to treat you and how you want other people to act. And then go through the 3 steps of set the boundary, make the boundary easy to respect, and then say, hey, I don't love it when you disrespect this boundary. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I don't know. I got a lot going on in my head. I just had to blast something. Thank you for helping me make it to 150. As always, I love you. I see you. Now let's do the damn thing.